I just wrote down 3 things really quick, James, to give us some optimism. Well, these are ideas, right? These are like ideas. Like, I think if, just going back to that like perspective thing, right? Like, what is the perspective shift that will need to happen for people to just like want to be more well, right? And it goes, and just because it's top of mind because we're just talking about it, I think people need to start respecting themselves over loving themselves. I think those are 2 different things, right? Respecting yourself, like if I have a lot of respect for myself, there's things that I'm going to do and not going to do. And I just mean respect for my body.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? If I have respect for my body, I'm gonna eat a certain way. I'm gonna do some certain things that might be a little bit challenging, but I know I need to do them because I have respect for myself. If I just love myself and I'm just like, I don't know, like this is the body that God gave me and I'm just gonna love it no matter what happens to this thing, there's no growth that's occurring there, right? It's just like, there's no, what you said earlier, like challenge, wanting to like challenge to improve yourself. But in that, the second piece is just like, I think people just want to, or people need to want to embrace this idea of like responsibility. A lot of people do when they get it, it changes their lives. I speak to like dads, like new dads all the time. And they're just like, I'm like reinvigorated because I have this new sense of responsibility. I'm like responsible for another person now. Right? But I think that feeling comes with a lot of different things, right? When someone's given responsibility, right? It's like you feel like because you're given that responsibility, now you have to like step your game up across the board, right? So respecting oneself, wanting more responsibility in life instead of less responsibility. And then finally, like...
Hope it's another R. Come on.
Yeah. Falling in love with resilience, right? Falling in love with this idea of like building resilience.
Mastery, bro.
Yes.
That's really good.
So it's like the whole like, man, I love growing through challenges. Like I have the ability to identify when something is hard and want to do it because I know I'm going to build more resilience, right? Yeah, those are the 3 things where I'm like, man,
that's
like
a nice shot, man.
Those characteristics, right? It's like, how do we get people to identify and like fall in love with those 3 characteristics and want to like embrace those 3 characteristics? And I think that's possible in a scenario where you're in front of people for an amount of time and you have the time and the space and you have their attention to actually speak to those things. And I'm doing this like in live time. I think I told you about like the wellness ministry that we're doing. And it's N equals 40 people, and it's just we're halfway through. We're doing week 4 tonight, and it's been that like the first 2 weeks we're just like, hey, this is where we are, but this is where we ought to be. And it's like, well, what do you mean? Well, let me tell you why, right? And obviously we're connecting around like a very common purpose, right? You know, like our purpose is like God driven, right? It's like, what does the Bible say about this? What does the Bible say you should do or how you should believe from this perspective or that perspective? Going from like physical activity to like fellowship and being in communion with people and like loving other people and staying true to like what you truly believe, even to like physical activity, nutrition, sleep, taking care of yourself, so on and so forth. So it's like almost like a cheat code in that scenario because you can like get people on board really quickly. But then I reflect on like what we're talking about today, where it's like, okay, now we're going out into the world and there's different people with different values and belief systems and purposes in life and all of that. So it's like, that's the thing where it's like, oh, let's identify that. But sometimes that takes a really long time. So to like get people to like get on board with ideas, there has to be like an indoctrination to those ideas. And I know that's like a negative term, but I think it could be used for good as well. But those were the 3 things that were just like top of mind for me. Hey guys, just want to say thank you for watching the video and take a second to talk to you about our app, CoachRx. So we built CoachRx to bridge the gap for coaches. And what do I mean by bridge the gap? So we're looking at a couple areas in which we're trying to solve for coaches on a daily basis. Number one being communication. We want you to be able to communicate with your clients more effectively and be able to connect them to what you're designing in program and lifestyles and nutrition coaching. Number two, we want to bridge the gap and we want to allow you to create more effective and efficient lifestyle, nutrition, and exercise programs. And number three, we want to bridge the gap and we want this platform to be truly all-in-one, something that you can build your business in, run payments, understand impact metrics, the whole nine. But I want to go back to that concept of all-in-one. So all-in-one is never truly done, but that is our North Star. So we're always working to make our app all-in-one. So we will constantly innovate, we will constantly integrate, and we will constantly update to ensure that we're just getting closer and closer to that all-in-one. So I can promise one thing as well. When you get in CoachRx today, you will experience the worst version of CoachRx because we are constantly improving and making this thing better. So don't take my word for it. Go in and start your risk-free 14-day trial and let us know what you think.
Well, do you want me to reflect?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, please.
Man, that's a lot in there, or I perceive it as a lot. So first of all, good on you for taking that challenge to like make it seem somewhat optimistic and providing people a pathway of it. I'm still going to say from the outset that I think it's admirable, but will be long-term ineffective. Because, well, first, the premise and the fundamental background that you choose for the base support as to why people should do those particular things in the 3 R's is healthy. But it's not modern. And that's one of the difficult things that I see happening in culture, and I'll just put it into 2 lanes to make it simple, but it's a complex conversation, but it's 2 lanes. The nuns, meaning non-believers, versus believers. And a lot of culture believes and society believes that the fix to a lot of woes is to go towards a belief, for good reason, because those believers have a fundamental structure for how to do things positively for best for all. But the fact remains that it's decreasing. So that means that more and more humans in America, will use that, are being, raised in a non-believing society. And I certainly want to move that outside of the conversation, but I just want to present facts for what it looks like for the future, right? Since the 1500s, apropos to what I'm reading, it's just been a downward trajectory in the USA for multiple different reasons, and this is where culture affects it. But, and the reason why I start with that premise to retort on your 3 R's is that it's just that the quote unquote separation of church and state, freedom to believe whatever you wish in the confines of America. Obviously, there's some trade-offs in that. One of the trade-offs is proposing an optimistic view going forward, because the current digital landscape, to use your 3 R's, people see, what was the first R?
Respect.
Respect. But people, it's gonna be difficult to teach the populace to not think that's narcissism. That, when you say it, it makes sense to the people you're speaking to on Wednesday nights. To the general populace, that's a direct action towards more time on TikTok, more groups. Who else is lonely out there? Who else is, that's where that ends up. That's my opinion. Responsibility. No one wants responsibility going forward. I mean, we shirk responsibility. I'm glad you brought up that dad, right? Because parents today are emblematic of teaching their new generation, most parents, maybe not the ones you see, or maybe you're still challenging them, but they teach them to have less responsibility. You're not responsible for that. It's the internet, it's the phone, it's your friends, this, let's call it what it is, a victim mentality, not a victor mentality, which is, again, another fundamental Christian perspective. That is, you see what I'm saying? Like that. So, and then on the third R, the resilient aspect, I don't know. I don't think people outside of that very small percentage that I see going forward are going to want to wake up and be like, man, I'm going to challenge myself today. Yeah. I think I have no hope for generations going forward that are going to be around parents that get up and are not on their phone all day, that don't teach their children, shirk responsibility. You don't have to work hard. You can chat GPT this shit,
But where does that end up, right? Like, where does it end up?
Where I said, like, I think, and that sounds conspiratorial, but I'm hoping that, well, I don't hope it because my children will be involved with that, right? But it's going to come down to a very small percentage of this, because it's not an elite, right? Because the quote unquote the intellectual or the blob in Washington, the elite, the Morning Joe's conversations, right? That's not what I mean. I mean the 2% no one knows about. And what are the 2% doing? Producing families, eating real food, physically challenging themselves. And then as the list goes on, there's a bunch of things what brings you and I together, both belief and non-belief, of these principles of like how to really live. Yeah. And that's a very small percentage, I think.
Yep. Sorry, to go back to the optimism.
So I don't know what will happen, is my question to
to go back to the optimism. We're talking about me and you, and we're talking about the coaches that are listening as well, right? So, and I think we can get caught up in, and I know you're not caught up in this, but I think we can get caught up in the bigger picture where we can't actually influence the bigger picture.
Right, but I think it's important to talk about it.
No, for sure, for sure.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I mean when I say effect size.
Yeah.
Like, who are you actually talking about? And I'm saying like that, I'm not talking about who you and I can affect with a language. I'm talking about like facts, right? So the replacement rate scenario of children and families, right? The disease status, the mental health challenges for a new generation, the obesity scores, right? Like I could go on with a list of facts. So I used to think that, I'll just take care of my own, people who want to listen and those outside of that. But then when you start asking the question, it is only your thing and this is just in your head, but when it's out there, don't worry about them, they'll let it figure it out. But we forget that affects us significantly. So if that number grows consistently to a large majority of individuals who are zombies, like walking dead for their whole life, stuck to their phone, right? Their job is based upon digitization. You see what I'm saying? Like everything is automated. That's dystopic. Yeah.
But on the effect size thing, what I was getting to is, you and I are having this conversation. I think you and I are going to leave this conversation and do the best that we can with the communities that are around us.
Yes.
Starting with our own families. And my hope is, and this is where the optimism comes in, it's like the coaches that are listening to this conversation, hopefully they think about this as well. And they're like, okay, how can I start to, boots on the ground, as we call it, right? How can I boots on the ground make an effect with the effect size that I can make that effect with? And I get it. Like, we do need to look at what's happening in the whole. And this goes to like, and now I'm going back to culture, so bear with me, but this goes to like the political landscape, right? It's like, I think too many people are overly concerned with world and national politics, and they're not concerned enough about what's happening and outside of their own front door, at their kids' school, so on and so forth, right? Where it's just like, pay attention, don't be ignorant, understand what's happening. But man, please don't let your life go down the gutter because of something that's happening that you can't have an immediate effect on right now. Instead, going back to the person that was addicted to drugs, right?
Yep.
This really bothers you, go and make change. Go and impact a couple people before you think about impacting 3 billion people, right?
Yeah.
So and that's where my head is, and I know that's me and hopeful and optimistic.
Yeah, no, it's great you're explaining it, because I see your optimism still lies.
Hey guys, I just want to say thanks a lot for sticking around to the end. Our goal in this channel is to create valuable content, one video at a time, and to keep it free. So if you're not already, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. And to continue watching on our channel, go ahead and click one of the videos above. And if you want to keep going and you want to keep digging, you want to start implementing the things that we talk about here on this channel, I highly encourage you to get started with a free 14-day trial inside of CoachRx. Thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate it.